A few weeks back, I made a video saying that Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning was likely going to be one of the best films of 2025. So, having seen it now, was I right? Well, the film is pretty damn good. So good, in fact, that I'm going to go and see it again for a second time this weekend. The film has absolutely tremendous action sequences, and one thing I really enjoyed about the action in this film is that it feels very different from previous Mission Impossible films. Without getting too much into spoiler territory, the film has two main action set pieces with a number of smaller ones scattered throughout the story. And the two main action set pieces feel very different to anything that we've seen in the previous Mission Impossible films. I felt that this was a really smart choice, as rather than risk retreading old ground that was already done to an excellent level, they instead opted to take the action in new directions and really push the boat out on what's possible for an action film. Tom Cruise's dedication to filmmaking is something truly inspirational. I know everyone everywhere is saying this, but they're saying it because it's true. Right now, there is simply no other actor operating on his level in terms of stunts, and the action in this film has you on the edge of your seat throughout, as it's not only well designed but also beautifully shot. I've heard director Christopher McQuarrie, a longtime career partner of Cruise, discuss how the Mission Impossible films are designed around their action, and the way that they are shot is just as important as the action sequences themselves. And this is really clear here as well, as the action in this film is shot beautifully. In relation to its plot, it does rely quite heavily on the previous films in the series, particularly the previous film Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, as this movie was originally titled Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2, and they later changed the title, but the film is very clearly the second part of that same storyline. Having said that, though, I felt that the film did an excellent job of explaining to the audience what they needed to know for this film, and the way flashbacks were handled I thought worked really well for the narrative. The settings for this film were also once again a visual treat. From Norway to England to Africa, this film was once again a globe-trotting adventure as is tradition with the franchise, and each location brought a unique colour palette for the cinematography of the film. The film is less colourful than other entries to the franchise, however, with more of the events taking place in dark spaces. However, this not only fits with the tone of parts of this film, but it also fits with one of the Impossible Mission Force's mantras, that being that we live and die in the shadows, and this is a key element of what this film explores. Whilst I mentioned that parts of this film are tonally a shade darker than the last film in the franchise, this film ultimately still has a very uplifting tone. As I mentioned in both my last video on this movie and in my Top Gun Maverick and Mission Impossible Fallout video essays, Tom Cruise films generally tend to be what I'd term as feel-good films. They're instant classics because fundamentally he understands that above all else, cinema is about entertainment, and that mindset is very visible in this film too. There are moments of humour, intense action, and suspense, and more emotional moments scattered throughout as well. I've also always enjoyed the character of Ethan Hunt. I think he's a great protagonist because he responds in a more human way to the situations he finds himself in, unlike many other action protagonists such as James Bond, who are designed from the ground up as being blunt instruments rather than relatable characters. And I mean no hate against Bond, as I'm a big fan of that franchise too. So much so, I recently watched every single Bond film in order of release, so expect a longer video on that at some point soon. In this movie, Tom Cruise plays Ethan just as well, if not better, than ever before. The plot allows for some heartfelt emotional moments alongside the action, and that ultimately is what holds this film together. The Mission Impossible film's combination of incredible action and likable characters is seemingly the secret to their popularity, as in being able to connect to these characters, the stakes of the action sequences are always therefore much higher. The only minor element of the film that I wish was done a bit better was that I wish they utilised the score more often. I'll pay attention to this again when I re-watch the film, but I didn't feel that the film relied on its music as much as previous films have in the franchise, which I thought was a shame as the soundtracks to these films are always very impressive and prominent. Ultimately, though, I still had an absolute blast watching this, and I highly recommend that people go and see it in the cinema if they can. It'll feel bigger and more impactful on the big screen, I can assure you with that. This movie deserves to do well because the people involved genuinely care about making the very best film that they can, and that really does show in the final product. For me, Mission Impossible Fallout still remains the best in the franchise, but this still remains a super enjoyable movie for any fan of the action genre. And if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and if you're looking for more reviews and video essays on your favourite movies and shows, please do like and subscribe for more if you wouldn't mind doing so. Thank you.